Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive EV live on YouTube. We just had Rivian drop their Q1 2022 shareholder letter, where there's a lot of juicy details to dive into. I wasn't too interested in the earnings call because it's not the kind of loose cannon ones where Elon just starts firing off crazy ideas and side tangents. Pretty much the most interesting things going on with Rivian I think are going to be in the shareholder letter, so you'll be able to read it along with me. I've skimmed it a little bit so far just to find kind of the most interesting details and kind of the things that stand out to me the most. But we don't have to just talk about Rivian the whole time. This is just kind of the main subject of kicking off. It's also just Wednesday. This is when we go live on the EV channel. This is our typical live stream time. But I'm a big fan of Rivian, of course, and I'm mostly concerned about the future of the company because I think they've made a really, really solid product. The R1T is just incredibly well engineered, so much fun to... I haven't even driven it, but just hang out in and check all the characteristics that they've built in that give it so much personality over other vehicles, and the fact that it's their first one, that this is from a startup company and stuff. I'm just very much sold on the product itself, and I'm hoping that they can continue to grow and that they don't get bought out or go bankrupt like a lot of car companies do. Most car companies actually don't make it. So these earnings and how the company performs is honestly very important to me. It is Wednesday, my dudes. that's when we do be streaming. But yeah, I'm curious about the earnings and the deliveries and the revenue of the company because that's what's going to dictate whether or not this company is going to stick around for the long haul or if it's going to unfortunately, go bankrupt or get bought out. And I feel like if it was bought out, it would probably be Amazon and they would basically just turn it into a delivery van company, which is fine, I guess, but I'm more interested in the R1T and R1S as standalone vehicles, their off-roading performance and their acceleration and their handling and how just practical they are as a vehicle. And Rivian so far is the only company that has confirmed that they are planning on building lithium iron phosphate versions of their pickup truck, which excites me because I'm a big fan of LFP. That's what I think the future of EVs is going to be, is just more and more iron phosphate. That's like if you're in the department of like you're following EVs but you can't afford one yet, or you would like to buy one but they're just too expensive, very highly likely that when you can afford an EV, it will have LFP in it, just because that's going to scale so much. I hope they don't announce that they bought Luna and USD. That would be bad, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be terrible. I don't think Rivian has. I think Tesla's the only company crazy enough to put billions in crypto. Let's not fully blame Rivian. This is a bad time to be a car manufacturer, especially for EVs. I don't know if there's ever really a good time, though. I mean, it's true that there's quite a bit of a recession going on, but I mean, Tesla started up and started delivering vehicles in 2008, which was also a huge crash in recession. So it's car companies have to be immune to that because car companies are around for a long time, and there's a decent number of recessions over the course of a century. So I'd love for them to succeed as well, and I'm very much hoping to find good info and good news. And like I said, I have skimmed over it and I have caught quite a few of the headlines so far. But I just figured, hey, this just dropped. I wasn't really planning on doing a recap video on it, but it's Wednesday, so this is when we're going to do our EV stream. I might as well react. But yeah, I will pull it up on the screen for you here so we can all see it together. I don't need to read. I probably don't need to read like every single word. But regardless, there's stuff to dive into. Wait, NFTs and cryptos were a scam? I know, right? Who would have thought that you could wire all your money to these digital accounts and then they could all just go away? Anyway, let's jump in. So we've got, wow, look at this launch screen lineup here. We've got plenty of R1Ts on the line. So this one did catch my eye. They had over 10,000 new reservations, basically, since increasing the prices of the Rivian, which is pretty good. I don't know if it's people trying to lock in their price, or if people are watching the YouTuber coverage of Rivian vehicles and there's like being sold on it, and the fact that there's big price hikes isn't scaring people away. But that's good. It proves that, once again, I've talked about this a million times and I'll talk about it a million more. There is no demand problem. Rivian does not have a demand problem. Ford does not have a demand problem. No one making electric trucks right now is struggling to sell them. Even the Hummer has over 65,000 reservations, and that's like, to me, an absurd vehicle that is not very practical, and I honestly don't think that many people should buy it. I don't really know who I would recommend the Hummer to, and yet there's still tens upon thousands of people willing to buy one and reserve one. So even with the price hikes, yes, people still find the Rivian a good value and a good deal. Yeah, they reaffirmed their production target for this year, which is 25,000, which is pretty modest, and they've got 17 billion in cash on hand. This one is somewhat important to me. This is the big distinct advantage Rivian has over Lucid right now. So in case you're wondering why there's a lot more concern and a lot more doubt surrounding Lucid, it's because Lucid does not. I don't even think they have 10 million. I think they have like 6 or no, I think it was less than 6 last I checked. Lucid has like less than $6 billion in cash. And yeah, I'm sure Rivian's not profitable yet. That's to be expected at this stage. But the fact that they have 17 billion in cash and their operating expenses are around $1 billion means, they're close to 2 billion, means that they can afford to keep burning cash like this for several more years to come. So they have a decent number of investments. So this is kind of recap of the quarter. They talk about the differences of the delivery van, the EDV 700 and the EDV 500. So that stands for 700 cubic feet versus 500 cubic feet, which is honestly quite a bit if you consider a Cybertruck has like 100 cubic feet. These vans have like 500, 700. The range is not very great, allegedly. But they did talk about, where is it later? Down here, this is what caught my eye. Anytime I see LFP, I'm like, oh, yes, tell me more. Tell me more. Basically, they're saying there's extensive continuous improvement activities across the vehicles, and they look forward to introducing their new LFP battery, updated electronics, single motor drive unit known as Enduro, that we plan to use in both the EDV for single motor application. So the delivery van is just going to be single motor, which makes sense. It's going to not need insane acceleration. It doesn't go off road. It basically just delivers packages in cities, which makes sense. But yeah, they still reaffirmed R1T dual motor getting LFP, which is, I think, really exciting because that'll be an affordable Rivian, but you can charge it to 100% every day, which is sweet. Yeah, Tesla has a demand problem. Gordon Johnson, grave marker. So they talk about some efficiencies here, as their goal is to achieve more than 10% global market share. I don't know what their obsession is with market share. I'm not sure why that matters so much, but I get that's their goal. It's basically equates to the same thing. Like, I think market share is kind of overrated, to be honest. Like, I don't think you should compare yourself to the rest of the market. You should just, compare yourself to where you are and where you want to be in terms of like how many vehicles do you want to build. That makes more sense to me, but whatever. Even the goal of achieving 10% global market share basically would equate to, tens of millions of vehicles eventually. So yeah, it's like, regardless, they want to build a lot of EVs. That's good. It is critical that we optimize the efficiency of each dollar spent per unit of capacity, which I like. That's what I'm all for, is like figuring out how to be more efficient with your capital, because Rivian is burning a lot right now. Here's a good example to have. Our dollar per unit of capacity for machinery and equipment between our first line design for the R1 body and our second line design decreased by almost 50%. That's quite a bit. And they're investing today in technologies and capabilities of R1 that are designed to benefit future platforms, including R2. I am assuming they mean R2-D2. That's what this has to be. Sorry, Star Wars Day is past. But this is the first time they kind of went into more detail about the R2. We believe our experience ramping the R1 and RCV platforms will benefit our next generation R2 platform, which will be key in driving attractive long-term returns on capital. So I'm not sure where in this documentation they talk about it, but basically from what they've described, the R2 platform is meant to offer a smaller, more affordable Rivian. So some people were wondering if the R2 was going in the larger direction, like make a bigger pickup truck. Sounds like more the opposite, which, for the record, I agree with. They haven't necessarily said if it will be a pickup truck. I'm guessing no, because the R1T is already kind of a pickup. But the R2 platform sounds like Rivian perhaps getting into more of like the compact hatchback space, or maybe a crossover, because the R1S might be closer to a full-size SUV. Um, what wattage will the Cybertruck 120 and 240 outlets have? I don't. You'd have to ask Tesla. Modern pickup trucks can output 400 watts on 110. What wattage will the 120 volt and 240? I don't. You'd have to ask Tesla. They've taken so much information away from the Cybertruck that all I can do is speculate. But I don't have numbers in my head. All we know is that based on the last earnings call, they might want to do 800 volts on the Cybertruck. So I don't know the exact wattages, but hopefully better than average is what I would expect, because they wait so long. Ooh, production progress. This is cool. They can see the R1S being merged with the battery pack. That's awesome. Primary objective this year is to ramp production of the R1S. That makes sense. We produced 5,000 vehicles since the start of production. So considering start of production was near the end of last year, the idea of them hitting 25,000 vehicles delivered by the end of this year is pretty reasonable, I would say. That's fairly likely. Optimus Gold Edition C3PO. Oh wow! Now you got all the vans next to each other, which is cool. The EDV, parallel production. Yeah, they have quite a constraint. They've got like 3 vehicles, and they're in startup mode. 3 vehicles all ramping at the same time. Tesla never had to do that, which is quite challenging. But thankfully, they've got some money on hand. Over-the-air capabilities. So this talks a lot about self-driving features, new drive modes, which is good. It's something we take for granted with our smartphones, but you realize when you start messing around with legacy auto and car wash mode. I remember when Tesla added that, or the garage thing. Rivian RJ tweeted out a demo of the garage door home link feature. But we take that for granted with Teslas and our phones and our laptops, that they all just kind of update by themselves, and we don't really think much of it. But legacy auto really does struggle with that. There's still a lot of Fords and other EVs that are like, you gotta go to the dealer to get an update, or you gotta plug in this one flash drive and download it off your computer and that kind of thing. No, it's 800 volt architecture. I don't think it's 800 watt architecture. That's a different thing. But they briefly talked about the 800 volt architecture on the last Tesla earnings call. That's where the news about 800 volt was discussed, because someone was asking them the benefits, given there's benefits of having a higher voltage architecture, why don't you do that on Tesla's vehicles? And Elon's response was basically that, the higher voltage makes a lot of sense for larger vehicles like the Cybertruck and the Semi, but when it comes to higher voltage for the Model 3 and Y, it would not really save that much money, and it wouldn't improve that much of the performance or the charging and that kind of thing. How long until Rivian is bought by Amazon? I hope forever. I don't want them to be bought by Amazon. They can treat them as a customer, but... Oh, that's interesting. Rivian has their own mobile service truck? Huh. We had 19 Rivian physical service centers and a fleet of mobile service vehicles in the market. East Coast and West Coast service parts distribution centers are fulfilling orders for service parts. That's good. Merchandise, that's less important, but adventure products and level 2 chargers. Look at that. They have like a little motorized robot built into the gear tunnel. That's that's kind of sweet. I want to see what it does. The Pro Eagle. Can we talk more about this undisclosed EV they've come up with? Looks like it's got all the tools and it goes under the truck or something. I don't know. But yeah, R1T does make for an epic mobile service vehicle, that's for sure. Ooh, this is a sweet picture. You can tell this one's height is set higher than the others. I love Red Canyon, to be honest. If I could pick any Rivian, regardless of price, I would probably buy the Red Canyon one. It looks so good. Okay. As of May 9th, we had over 90,000 net R1 pre-orders from consumers in the US and Canada. That's impressive to me, that even after the price hike, it didn't slow down people from ordering. That's a good sign, because it means that, once again, the demand is absolutely not a problem for them. They received over 10,000 pre-orders with an average price of over $93,000. That's crazy. Oh my God. so many people are like, yeah, 93 grand sounds legit, sounds good to me. The fact that Rivian is dealing with this many pre-orders and getting this many reservations at a price point that high, to me is evidence that demand for electric trucks, even at high price, is still high. Um, this reaffirms to me that the Cybertruck will be $100,000. Seeing the demand, like that many people are ordering the truck and they're comfortable paying that much, that's crazy. Hello, people. This is kind of a weird picture to dive into. There's a family here. We remain focused on evolving our pre-order process to better manage our backlog. Oh, this is new. I didn't catch this. Soon we will be launching an updated reservation system for new customers that separates the reservation and configuration steps. New customers will still be able to browse through options. However, the ability to save a specific configuration will not happen until closer to a customer's build slot. Okay, so this is basically what Tesla did with the Cybertruck. You can't configure it anymore, but you can reserve one. So it sounds like the Rivian configurator might go away for the public, which is a bit of a bummer. Machines, when the power grid is down and the crops need water, they use 480 volts. I see. Jorge says 240 volt outlet should be able to power a dryer, but I was wondering what the peak wattage would be since I know a lot of farmers use generators to temporarily power irrigation. I'm guessing they will provide the highest they can. Anyway, new customers will still be able to browse through options. Sorry, I read that. This change ensures that when a build is configured, the customer is choosing from the latest features, packages, and pricing. New reservation system equips us to better navigate managing a large demand backlog with inflation uncertainties, planned content changes. Content changes? What? Rivian Plus? Are you guys making your own subscriptions? And enhancements to ensure customers are offered the latest product offerings. I guess that's reasonable because people might look at the configurator and think a certain thing, and then the prices change. Yeah, look at all these happy people getting their trucks. This dog looks scared, though. Good morning, Steve. Oh, my God. It's talking to me. Finalizing the partnership with the state of Georgia. So, yeah, they're already moving on this new plant, which is pretty sudden. Not sure if that's a great idea, but I guess they got a lot of cash in the bank. 7,500 new jobs, and they plan with the new plant to be the production site for their future R2 platform, a more accessibly priced, oh, here we go, mid-sized SUV targeting global markets. So they want to build the R2 in Georgia, but they also want to export that around the world. That's interesting. So something smaller than the R1S is what I'm taking that as. Because I don't think the R1S counts as a mid-sized SUV, but maybe more of a LFP built vehicle. Offers Rivian a total incentive package of $1.5 billion. Jeez, that's good. That's a good discount. Negative gross profit of $502 million. That's to be expected. As we produce vehicles at low volume on production lines designed for higher volumes, we have and will continue to experience negative gross profit related to significant labor and overhead costs. So yeah, that's not really a huge shock. They produced over 2,500 vehicles and delivered over 1,200. There's still a pretty big gap in deliveries versus produced. It makes me wonder if Rivian is building a bunch of vehicles with missing parts. So the vehicle is done, but because of the chip shortage, they leave out a couple things, and then they go out to the parking lot and update the rest. Sawyer Merritt pointed out something on Twitter that I just thought I should mention because they're talking a lot more about this R2 platform, which is kind of interesting to me now. It's there might be a mid-sized SUV that's more affordable by Rivian, but they have trademarked the names as R2T, R2S, R2A, R2C, R2R, and R2X. So I don't know which one the midsize SUV will be, but it's cool to see them actually talk about, like what Mike said, basically a Model Y competitor, which I'm all in favor of because, well, on one hand, I'm getting kind of sick of all the electric crossovers. There's so many electric crossovers on the market right now, but I understand why. It makes sense. It's the most popular segment. That's what most people are buying. So if Rivian wants to work on a larger volume vehicle that more and more people would buy, I guess going after the midsize SUV market would make sense. Okay, so we checked operating losses. Um, Q1 was 1.59 billion compared to 14 for the same period last year. Yeah, it makes sense. I get it. The expenses are high, the income is low right now as we ramp up, yada yada yada. Okay. Outlook. Let's see. We remain focused on ramping production, of course, based on the demonstrated production rates. Um, Total units of production of 25,000 this year is the goal. We have optimized our product roadmap and associated operating expenses to ensure we have a path to launch R2 in Georgia in 2025 with our current cash on hand. Wow, that's impressive. So that with the current cash already presented, they can bring the R2 to market. It's, I guess 2025 sounds like a long ways away, but that's still only really 3 years, which frankly isn't that long. Um, and yeah, they did the earnings call and stuff. But yeah, so we now know a bit more about what their future product roadmap looks like, which is kind of interesting. Um, yeah, of course, all disclaimers, disclaimers, disclaimers. Oh, this might change. This might change. Um, Gross profit 502 million. That's good. So if their ramp continues, I feel like with enough cash on hand, they should be good. They, yeah, cash equivalents end of period. I feel like if as long as they don't have any major serious shutdowns or anything, they with this amount of cash on hand, they'll probably be fine. I don't feel like they're gonna go bankrupt. Um, that's a cool shot to end on because R1S are excited to deliver. I wonder how you make something much smaller than this. I guess you could shrink the frunk area a bit, maybe not prioritize the back row. Because one thing that has changed that I haven't seen that many people talk about is the fact that every R1S comes with 7 seats now. They made that a standard feature. Before, the configurator used to show an option, so you could spec it to be a 5-seater or a 7-seater. But now it appears that all Rivians are 7-seaters. R1Ss are 7-seaters. And that just kind of simplifies manufacturing. And I also think it's kind of cool because there's not any other EV on the market that I know of where 7 seats is standard. Like, that's not an upsell. Most of the time, there's not very many EVs offering 7-seaters as is. I believe it's like the Model X, which charges an extra 3,000 or 4,000 for a 7-seater, and the Model Y, which is an extra 3,000 for the 7-seater. And that's a very, very loose definition of 7-seater, considering how small those back seats are. I'm sure that the R1S is more roomy in the third row. But maybe the R2 midsize SUV coming in the next 3 years or so is not going to prioritize the 7-seat as much. I'd like to see what things they take out. You know, maybe they would drop the driver display. Maybe they would drop the rear-facing passenger display. Maybe they would shrink the frunk a little bit more. Maybe not even a glass roof. Maybe they go with a body-colored roof to save on cost, and of course do an LFP battery, dual motor only, that kind of thing. Yeah, kind of like a Ford Flex. I remember that. We heard there's too many crossovers in the EV market, so we made a crossover. You should make some merch with all the Gigafactories on it. Would be dope. I don't know. Someone probably already does that, but I'm out of the merch game. But you guys can make your own merch. Anybody can just sign up for those pages and post them. So yeah, I mean, finding out about the cash on hand with the expenses as they are, but the ramp up seems to be going okay. I'm a little concerned about how low the deliveries are relative to production. That makes me wonder if there's like missing chips or something. That they just have a bunch of vehicles waiting for chips to show up, so they count them as produced, even if they're not technically done or ready for customer deliveries. There's a lot of shortages going on, and I'm sure it's impacting everybody, but the fact that they've built 5,000 vehicles so far means that, okay, building 25,000 basically means you have to 10x from Q1 production A little bit less than 10x because you've already built 2500. So we want you to make merch so you earn the money. It's okay. I don't want to earn merch money. I've done it in the past, and it's it's fine. It's there's enough merch in the world. It's honestly kind of not super environmentally friendly how much clothing is produced and the methods gone into it. I'm actually fairly interested in Sawyer Merritt's startup because he wants to do sustainably sourced clothing company. So to be talking about EVs and stuff while also contributing to the incredibly wasteful and very fairly large merch market, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about my merch income. There's enough channels promoting merch on YouTube. I'm kind of sick of it. But we don't all have to be walking billboards, you know. There's nothing wrong with just having a T-shirt with nothing on it. That's underrated. Um, yeah, this is a pretty positive earnings report. How did the stock react to it? I'll double check here. After hours is up 8%. I mean, the stock for Rivian is, of course, way, way lower than it used to be, but it seems like the market is reacting positively to the news despite missing their estimated revenue expectations. So I guess Wall Street was expecting 135 million and Rivian reported 95, so that was a bit of a disappointment, but it's not stopping people from buying the stock, which is good. Um, so people have faith in the company. I definitely think of all the startups that have delivered vehicles, Rivian is doing the best. I guess that's not much of a competition though, because pretty much the only other company doing that is Lucid. And Lucid just has a lot less cash in the bank and is delivering less vehicles and raking in less revenue. So that obviously just makes it kind of doubtful. People are like, I don't know how this is going to work out. But the R2 platform is probably the most exciting part for me. I was excited to hear them talk more about, like, I want to see that event, you know. I don't even recall if I've ever watched a Rivian event. I've attended the Rivian First Mile um events where you get to check out the car and look at it in person and stuff, but uh I haven't seen them do like a live stream where they unveil a new vehicle or that kind of thing. Hey, it's Mark Plot. I mean, LJ. He says they'll still fail, in my humble opinion. Tell me why. Don't just say I think they'll still fail. Just say what you think the limiting factor is. What segment do you think Rivian will go next? It seems like the mid-size crossover market is the R2. Um, I don't think that Rivian's interested in doing a sedan, and frankly, they probably shouldn't, especially with this emphasis on them being this adventure off-roading kind of outdoorsy. A sedan doesn't really fit their ethos that much. So I agree. I don't really think they need to go into the sedan segment. Going into the more affordable crossover space, while it is a saturated market and it's kind of probably the EV community is kind of sick of finding out about electric crossovers, I do still think that it's a very high demand market. So, like the Model Y is selling at incredible volume. Um, Model Y is selling really, really well, and it's still $63,000. So I think Rivian could comfortably sell like a $60,000 or $50,000 electric crossover with high margin, and they would have plenty of demand for it. Once people experience a non-Tesla experience, they realize they got. You know what's funny? I've been following Rivian stories and keeping up with the Rivian subreddit. Most people buying Rivians have owned Teslas. A lot of Tesla owners are buying Rivian, and they have no problem telling you that they prefer the Rivian to the Tesla. The Tesla probably still has advantages in terms of um, software, like autonomous driving and the charging network. But as far as just an overall product goes, the Rivian, I have to admit, is far more practical than any Tesla you can buy right now in terms of the gear tunnel, the frunk space, the trunk space, the suspension, the performance, the off-roading capability. The Rivian is faster than every non-plaid Tesla. Like, it's insanely fast. It has great handling. It has air suspension. It has an air compressor. It's just so much more you can do with a Rivian. Um, Only downside, of course, is the charge network. But I don't agree with the mindset that non-Tesla EVs won't sell, because basically your argument is that Rivian will run out of demand, where they literally just proved in this own earnings deck that they increased their prices by like 20% and they still got over 10,000 reservations. So if they're at well over 90,000 reservations for the Rivian. Um, yeah, they're not going to have a demand problem. Once the Cybertruck is here, I presume those Tesla Rivian people may change their minds. I don't think so. Because the Cybertruck isn't going to be here anytime soon. The Rivian's being built right now. It's in production. Cybertruck doesn't even have casting presses in place. So we're at very, very minimum 12 months out. And I don't think the Cybertruck is going to undercut the Rivian. I think it's going to be $100,000, and the range isn't going to be very good. It'll be probably like 330 miles of range. And a lot of people don't like the look of the Cybertruck. A lot more people prefer, I'm not saying I don't. I like the look of the Cybertruck. I think it'll be the best electric pickup truck, but I don't think it'll be the cheapest. And I don't think it'll be the only one. There's enough demand for all of these things. There's not any EV right now, in my opinion, stealing all the demand from another. It's not like everyone's stopped buying the ID4 because the Model Y is so good. It's like, no, it's like every one they build will sell. So it's kind of ridiculous and hilarious to me that there's still people thinking Rivian's going to have a demand problem when they're already proving like we can jack up our prices and still get 10,000. They got more reservations after the price hike than vehicles they built in Q1. They built like 2,500 vehicles and got 10,000 reservations with a price hike. So that the more they deliver, the more people know about them, the more established they become, and the more people want one. There'll be a limited number of people who want Rivian in the end. Yeah, there's no evidence of that, man. I don't know what the end is. There's basically more EVs built in the future and more people willing to pay for them as time goes on. My stepdad had a horrible experience with a Nissan Leaf. It's been hard to change his mind on EVs since. I'll have to give him a ride on a Tesla to do so. Yeah, the Nissan Leaf has not provided a great experience for a lot of people, but I would hardly say that the Rivian experience is anywhere close to the Nissan Leaf experience. Him and his workmate got stranded on I-35 going from Texas to Oklahoma. Yeah, like the range is not great on the Leaf, and the software is not great either. Whereas the Rivian software and the Rivian range is much, much better. I wouldn't bunch all non-Teslas into one segment and just say no one will buy these, because clearly people are buying them. Lucid is worth more than Rivian right now. Yeah, that makes no sense to me. I don't know why. Yeah, the Lucid market cap is at 23 billion and the Rivian market cap is at 18. Both, in my opinion, are kind of overvalued. Like, I wouldn't buy the stock at this price even at a record low. I wouldn't buy Lucid or Rivian stock because a lot of their success is going to be dictated on how they perform. And, their top goal is very different from Tesla. Tesla's trying to get to 20 million vehicles delivered a year by 2030. And Tesla has a proven track record with hitting the numbers they set out for themselves way in advance. So way back in 2014, Elon said they wanted to deliver 500,000 vehicles by 2020 per year, and they hit that. That was like 6 years in advance, and they were right on target. With the factory shutdowns, they would have exceeded it. I know. Mike loves the yellow chassis. That's why I had to pull up this picture. It's so beautiful. It's the Minion Rivian. Can we get a Minion themed Rivian just so that Mike doesn't like Compass Yellow anymore? Ford Lightning is going to be the number one truck. I think this year, yes. I think before Cybertruck enters the picture, the Ford Lightning will probably be built at higher volume than the Rivian. But number one doesn't really mean that much when there's only 3 EV trucks on the market. There's the Rivian, which is from a brand new company that's never built any vehicles before. So they're starting from scratch. I don't expect them to compete with Ford. You have the electric Hummer, which is kind of a joke vehicle. It's got like over 200 kilowatt hours, and it costs over $100,000. But again, still 65,000 reservations. That's a lot. The Ford, at least, is reasonably priced, and it's coming from a legacy automaker that has mass produced an EV before, the Mustang, the electric Mustang, maybe we shouldn't call it a Mustang, the Mach-E. And because they're kind of throwing all of their manufacturing efforts towards the Lightning, it's probably likely that Ford will outproduce Rivian this year just because they have the infrastructure for it. But once the Cybertruck enters the picture, it's not going to be a demand thing. I don't think no one's going to buy the F-150 because the Cybertruck comes out. That's not what I'm saying. There will be people buying the Rivian. There will be people buying the Lightning. There will be people buying the Cybertruck. All of these EV trucks are going to sell. It's just the real competition is who can build the most. That's what it should be about. And that's a hard thing to convince people because we're so used to markets where we're not supply constrained. So many people make predictions and guesses based on demand. And they keep saying, well, because Tesla does this or because Ford does, because Tesla has the better charging network and Tesla has, the better durability or the better batteries, Tesla will outsell everybody else and no one will be able to sell their cars. Or because Ford has the affordability, because Ford can build a $40,000 electric truck, no one will buy the higher expensive truck. I don't think anyone is truly grasping what the insane pent-up demand is for these EVs. They don't realize that there's enough demand for all of them to sell. It's just a competition of who can build the most, if you want to talk about who's number one. And Tesla has always proven to outbuild everybody else in terms of how quickly they can ramp production, how quickly they can get an assembly line going, how quickly they can get a factory online. And I personally predict, looking at these engineering pictures, each one of these colors is a little bit different. All these door handle cutouts, all the complexities with the gear tunnel and the hatch and the things you add on top of that, some with the kitchen set, some with the quad motor, some with the dual motor, some with the ocean coast interior, some with launch screen interior, some with the black mountain interior. There's so much complexity. I'm not saying that's going to bankrupt them, but it will slow the production ramp. It complicates the assembly process. Even when you streamline everything and get it running at a fairly high capacity, it's complicated. And I think the Cybertruck is just going to be the most basic, simple pickup truck in terms of manufacturing, that Tesla will be able to ramp up Cybertruck very, very quick. And yes, I do believe they'll ramp it up faster than Ford, faster than Rivian. And once they start delivering Cybertrucks, they'll probably outnumber the F-150 Lightning. But I don't think it'll be because of price or features. It'll just be because Tesla can match demand better because they have extremely good manufacturing methods. There's not going to be any paint job to worry about. They're going to use tons of single-piece castings on the Cybertruck underbody. They'll have a structural battery pack, which saves them a ton of time. They're probably only going to have one wheel option, one interior option. I don't think they're going to have a white and black or cream interior. All the interiors will be the same. All the tires will be the same. All the exteriors will be the same. It's just going to be a painfully simple design in terms of mass production that Tesla will deliver the most, but they're not gonna kill off anybody, in my opinion. What do you suggest for fixing the windshield wiper issue with the Cybertruck? Frankly, I think they should just put up with it, if I'm being honest. Once demand is settling, reliability reputations will eventually crush most of them. Well, that's not a good example because Tesla doesn't have the best reputation in terms of reliability, especially when it comes to quality control. So there's a lot of bad press around them with that already. They will all sell in the beginning, but reliability issues. I don't know where you're coming. Do Rivians have reliability issues? Because I haven't heard that anywhere. I know that Tesla has bad quality control. That's been talked about a lot. It's not stopping people from ordering the car, but to me, that's a point that people want EVs enough that they're willing to put up with spotty quality control. To the point that even if Rivian has quality control problems, still people want to buy the vehicle. We are so far away from any kind of demand problem. I've heard that statement so many times. Once demand settles, it's like it's not happening, man. It's not happening. What do you think the part shortage and chip shortage will die down and make production easier for Tesla and other car manufacturers? It's really hard to know because, frankly, a lot of people thought the chip shortage would be done when the pandemic ended, but with a lot of political tensions and government pressure and things heating up in the world right now between China and Taiwan and the war in Ukraine and that kind of thing, that's all still impacting supply chains. So I can't say there's a light at the end of the tunnel we're getting closer to. If anything, it might get worse. Quality control perhaps and body issues, but overall function and driving reliability is my thought. So your thought process as to why Rivian will die is because you're inventing a problem that doesn't exist. You're guessing that the overall function and driving reliability will go bad, but you don't have any evidence of that. Sorry. It's a weak argument, in my opinion. Doesn't mean much. But yeah, there's a lot of global tensions right now between countries that could lead to more supply chain issues. So I don't. Unfortunately, I'm sick of it too. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of people saying chip shortages and what have you. You couldn't trust Ford for software. Yeah, if you can't get your point across, just type in caps lock. That's always a good idea. Correct. Taiwan makes most of our semiconductors, and China and Taiwan are not too happy with each other. So yeah, it's sad. I'm sick of hearing about supply chain shortages and people saying the chip shortage is impacting production. I want it to be resolved. I hate hearing that counter argument, but frankly, it's just kind of accurate. It's kind of true. That's just there's a lot of shortages, and I think Tesla is handling it the best way. With chips, but I don't think any EV brand in the near future is probably within even the next 10 years. There's so much demand for EVs right now. For the next 10 years, I don't expect any EV brand to die because of lack of demand. They will die for other reasons: lack of capital, lack of investment, lack of supply, lack of parts, lack of manufacturing methods, lack of jobs, lack of people, lack of efficiency. There's all kinds of things that can kill an EV company. But I don't think demand is one of them for the next 10 years. I really do not believe any company is going to go bankrupt because, well, we built these EVs, but no one bought them. Like, there are still people buying the BMW i3. And the i3 is a ridiculous vehicle, in my opinion. It's not very practical. It's super low range. It's very expensive. People still buy them. There's no EV that's just like, we can't sell these things. No one's buying them. You have very good looking hair. You don't have to lie, Liam. I know my hair is all messy. It needs to be cut. It's time. It keeps falling off my head. Do you think Tesla could incorporate solar panels in the strips of the rollable bed cover in the future? They probably could, but my guess is that the efficiency is not going to be great. And it's probably just going to complicate manufacturing. So I predict they will not do that, even though it may be technically possible. It's just a matter of manufacturing. That's what their priority is how quickly can we build these things. So they're going to design the Cybertruck in the best way possible to prioritize manufacturing efficiency. And probably having a solar option for the rollable bed cover, or even making it standard, is not going to be super helpful because of the efficiency of the Cybertruck. Even if it is pretty good, you would likely get like 15 miles of range added through that solar panels on the top. Which company will bring new truck consumers into the market with their EV trucks? Probably not a Ford that looks just like the ICE Ford. I personally think Rivians and Cybertrucks, a lot of people getting those, from what I've seen, are first-time pickup truck owners. There's a lot of people that are EV enthusiasts that were just like, I love electric cars so much, I don't want to drive a gas car, so they don't drive a pickup. But then once they found out, oh, now I can get a pickup like a Rivian or a Cybertruck or even a Lightning. I think Ford said like 70% of their F-150 Lightning reservations were from like first-time Ford owners or that kind of thing. There were people that weren't normally buying Ford pickups. So it's not as many traditional pickup truck buyers as you may think. What is that device behind me? It's a Zoom H6 microphone I use for my videos, but it's doing nothing right now. How's Aptera doing it? Aptera is doing it by achieving absurdly high efficiency. So the Cybertruck is not going to be that efficient relative to an Aptera, or even relative to a Model Y or Model 3. Those vehicles are going to have like, or already have, a miles per gallon equivalent of like 130, 140. Whereas the Cybertruck is probably going to be like 70 miles per gallon equivalent, 80 miles per gallon equivalent. So solar is not super useful on vehicles that consume that much power. The Aptera is shooting to be like 300 miles per gallon equivalent, which is just an absurd amount of efficiency. And when you make a vehicle that's that lightweight, that aerodynamic, and can consume just tiny sips of power on long drives at high speed, that's when solar starts to make a lot more sense, because you can only get so much energy per day from solar. But if you're consuming so little power, then it's fairly logical. For Aptera, with their solar cells, they're anticipating like I think something like 30 or 40 miles of range per day, just based on how little power it needs to drive. So I don't know if that's aspirational or if they're actually getting those numbers, but I'm hoping they can deliver on that, because getting 30 or 40 miles of free driving per day just from the sun is incredible. That's probably my favorite startup of all the startups. But they're not publicly traded, so we can't follow earnings reports and that kind of thing. F-150 Lightning is underrated. I mean, I feel like it has a lot of hype, but yeah. There's a lot. I think there's a ton of people reserving the Cybertruck that have never owned a pickup before. At least I can think of several in my personal life that are very much interested in the truck but have never bought a truck before. Don't you agree EV is a software-driven product? Therefore, I just don't see how anyone can trust Ford or even Rivian to be able to sustain and maintain future issues absent unlimited investment. Well, first of all, Ford is in tremendous debt anyway, so the investment thing isn't a big issue. I do agree that I don't know if I would say it's completely software driven, but yeah, software plays a big role. I just don't think that the software in the Ford is going to prevent people from buying it. Like, yeah, I agree. The Tesla software, the Rivian software looks better than the Ford software. Um, but it's not stopping anyone from buying the thing. The F-150 Lightning got like over 180,000 reservations. Like, that's absurd. They don't have anywhere close to the production capacity for that. And the F-150 Lightning is literally, you can get an F-150 Lightning for cheaper than a Model 3, and it's a pickup truck, like with a 5.5-foot bed and a 0 to 60 time of 4 seconds, and over 200 miles of range. Like, that's just an incredible value for a truck. There's going to be plenty of people that buy that thing, even if the software is crappy. It's not the only thing that matters in a vehicle, in my opinion. It's something that matters a lot to me. Like, yeah, even though you could buy an F-150 Lightning for cheaper than a Model 3, I wouldn't do it. I don't need a pickup truck. I care more about energy efficiency, but someone else might care more about bed space and towing capability and acceleration, or all-wheel drive. Someone else may care about the things that an F-150 prioritizes, which I think there's going to be, honestly, a lot of people that trust Ford over Tesla, just because Ford has been making vehicles for a whole lot longer. So there's a lot of people that just won't trust Tesla because Elon bad. You know, there's a lot of that public perception in the world. Rivian has already been sustaining their software for customers over the last 2 quarters. Yeah, that Rivian's been doing great, honestly. They offered a software update a couple weeks ago that improved the charging speed, added the car wash mode, I think improved the cold weather performance, cold weather efficiency. I was watching Kyle from Out of Spec go through all the changes in the latest Rivian software update. It was fantastic. So I don't follow your argument that Rivian is going to fail due to software being spotty. If anything, I've been very, very much impressed with what Rivian has done software wise. We can only base them off of what we know, and so far what we know is that Rivian software is quite good. It's honestly, I would say, a close second to Tesla. Definitely not in terms of autonomous driving ability, but that's not something even a lot of Tesla owners probably believe in or care about. FSD take rate is not super high. I think it's from the data I've looked at from crowdsourced websites, FSD take rate is like 10% or something. So like 90% of people buying Teslas don't buy full self-driving. They just use autopilot. Um, I ordered a Lucid Air Grand Touring with 19-inch wheels. Congratulations, Jorge. I hope you get your car soon. Let me know if you want to meet up. I'd love to check it out. I got to see the Lucid in person, but they wouldn't let me sit inside it. We went to the showroom and we were like, "Can we sit? Can we check it out?" And they were like, "No, maybe later. We'll put you on the waiting list." And then they never contacted us back. Okay, Starlink now offers an updated version of the dish for vehicles. Yeah, it's an accessory that. Wait, what? There's an image of an accessory that fits into the bed, and it's pretty much a collapsible office with toilet. Do you think Starlink will continue to advance the stability of their antennas and receivers for internet while on the move, therefore making it a monster of a mobile productivity machine? Well, yeah, it already is, because they just, I don't know what you're referring to. are you talking hypothetically? It fits into a bed and gives you internet. I don't think Starlink on moving vehicles is as practical as people think. It makes a lot of sense for planes, because planes go up very high, so they're not going to have obstruction issues. Cars get a lot of obstruction issues. You drive under bridges, you drive into tunnels, boring company tunnels. Starlink wouldn't work in a boring company tunnel. And you drive in the woods. If you're driving in a place where there's lots of trees around the road, then you would lose signal. So I'm not convinced that Starlink on a moving vehicle would make a lot of sense. It's more of like a great camping feature of like you're out in the middle of nowhere and you can set it up and you're stationary, which they do offer that now. It's a portability option. So for an extra $25 a month, you can plug in a Starlink and have internet wherever you are, basically, as long as you're on the same continent, I believe. You still have a Model 3 Performance, which I'm keeping, and still have Cybertruck order as well. Oh, interesting. That's awesome. Is your goal to have all your EVs over 500 miles of range? I hope you can get that. I feel very good about my theory on the Cybertruck. I'll just say that. I'm very much convinced. I don't have sources. Well, okay. I I okay, I've said too much. All I'll say is I feel very confident that the first Cybertruck, the quad motor, which I personally believe will be the only tier. I don't think they're going to do a tri-motor. I don't think they're going to do a dual motor or a single motor. They're just going to do quad motor Cybertrucks, and I don't think the range will be over 400 miles. That's my prediction. It's a prediction. I could be wrong. I very much could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, to be honest with you. I want the Cybertruck to have 500 miles of range, but based on how Tesla has handled the chip shortage, how they've handled 4680s, and how they're ramping Model Y at Giga Texas, I'm very much convinced it's going to be like 300 something, maybe 330, 340. Starlink can work in a tunnel, just got to wire connection to Wi-Fi tunnel, the same way Sunlight is under. But you could do that with any internet provider. If you're providing Wi-Fi inside the tunnel, you could use any internet. You wouldn't have to use Starlink. You could use cellular. You could use fiber. You could use Comcast. You could use AT&T. There's nothing inherently about Starlink. You're technically not using Starlink internet anymore. You could use an extender, but again, that extender could work with any internet provider. I do a lot of driving, and 500 miles of range is a sweet spot for me. The Model 3 will be for around town. That's interesting. How much driving do you do on average? Because I think the daily average driver is like 40 miles. So I have a hard time grasping how 500 miles is the sweet spot. Like, how much road tripping do you do? And also account for charger location. Like, where are the Electrify America stations on your drives? If you're doing over 500 miles routinely, that you want a Lucid Air for it. Check for the EA stations in your area. Make sure they support fast charging, because it might not actually save you that much time if the EA stations that you have to stop at are slower speed. If that ends up being the case, you might end up saving like, I don't know, 20 minutes versus a Model 3. Okay, do you think that those of us on the waiting list early on will be prioritized for the quad motor as an option? Not at all. That's just never what Tesla has done. I've watched the launch of several Teslas. They've never once prioritized the people who order the car first. That's never been how it's worked. It's always been logistically based on where you are to close to the factory and if there's a lot of people in your area that also have orders. So like there's probably a bunch of people who ordered the Cybertruck that live in California. So when Tesla starts mass producing Cybertrucks, first of all, they're probably going to prioritize deliveries around Giga Texas because they don't have to move them as far and they get to register that as a delivery. So if you just deliver all the Cybertrucks in the Austin area, you can say, okay, done. We delivered 1,000 Cybertrucks today. Good job. But if there's a bunch of orders in California and you're like, okay, we're going to start exporting Cybertrucks somewhere, you're going to send them all to the place with the hotspot of demand because there's a high population here. So it doesn't matter if you live in Florida or you live in Minnesota or Montana and you were like technically the first person who got your order in. You were refreshing the Tesla website, and the second it loaded, you put in your reservation. If you're way out in the middle of nowhere, they're not going to load up one Cybertruck on a semi-truck, drive it all the way out to you just because you locked in your order early. That's not how it works. It's based on location to the factory and hotspots of demand. So I think your best bet of getting a Cybertruck early has nothing to do about when you ordered it. I honestly think if you put down a Cybertruck reservation right now, today, and you live in Austin, you will probably have a better chance of getting it than if you were a day one reservation holder, but you live in Washington. That person, because that exact scenario was happening. There were people that reserved the Model Y like a couple weeks before deliveries began that were getting their cars before people that put in their reservation on unveiled night, like a year before, but they lived far away from the factory. They were not prioritized. So there's not really a list. There's just kind of a big pool of names. You're not like in line with the Cybertruck. It's not like, okay, deliver to this guy, then to this guy, then to this guy. No, it's just once it's ready, they'll let people know within a specific area. So Johnny Monsters is basically under the assumption that not only will the Cybertruck dual motor get better range than the Giga Texas Model Y, but it will also cost the same as the Giga Texas Model Y. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. The Cybertruck is a far more practical, far larger vehicle that will use more batteries than the Model Y does. So there's no way it's going to cost less than a Model Y and get better range. In my view, there's just no chance of that happening. Because the Giga Texas Model Y is 279 miles of range, priced at $60,000. And the Cybertruck has the 6 seats. It's got a bed. It's got an air suspension. It's got... also, I don't think they'll do the dual motor. I think quad motor is just going to be the standard one. I don't think Tesla will deliver in Texas first because of the limitation they have. Tesla would also have to export out of Texas first, then back in. I'm pretty sure they've found a loophole with that because they've technically started deliveries. It's just with employees. They've already legally started deliveries of the Giga Texas models. They just haven't done it to customers yet. But they're close with the Austin government. They'll probably find some loophole to avoid that. The legal thing is weird. I know there's a Texas delivery limitation. The only thing is, their point is like the point of sale has to be outside of Texas. You can take delivery of a Tesla in Texas, but the point of sale has to be outside. But because you can wire money and technically pay for the car outside by just saying like, well, they wired the money to this server and this server is in California or something. There's ways around it. It's not a big deal. I think it has to do with quarterly deliveries, start close to factory and work out per quarter. Yeah, it definitely does. It looks much better on paper and it's also way better financially. Like you can turn a profit on your vehicle much, much faster if you focus on delivering vehicles closer to the factory. I hope they do a lottery with investors for the first 20 and get an invite to an event to take their truck. That would be great, but I don't think they've ever done that. There were people that had like millions upon millions of dollars invested in Tesla stock that did not get invited to the Cyber Rodeo event. So I don't think stock has ever helped out people. Got my Rivian last Saturday. Ordered December. Now the wife has the Model Y. I'll rock the R1T until the Cybertruck comes. Hey, congrats. I'm happy you got your Rivian, man. That's awesome. What are you going to do? I'm curious. What are you going to do with the Rivian once the Cybertruck comes? Didn't Elon recently say Tesla is still prioritizing cost for Cybertruck? I'm not saying it will be the same price as announced, but maybe 10 or 20K more. It was a while back. I think it's important to remember Elon says a lot of things, and then Tesla will do something else. That's happened quite a bit. But he didn't say particularly what it would cost. He wasn't saying we're prioritizing this price or this such and such. Um, what he did say was the biggest challenge with Cybertruck development is making it affordable, making it something that people can actually buy. You can kind of interpret that multiple ways. On one hand, you could say, "Oh, okay, they're trying to honor the original pricing." Um, oh, he'll sell it. Yeah, he'll probably turn a profit on it. But the other way to interpret Elon's comments is that they're struggling to bring it down to a price point someone would actually consider um, paying for it. So, like, right now, it costs them $1 million to build the Cybertruck, and they're struggling to find a way to get the price down to like 100,000. Like, you could kind of interpret that multiple ways, but all I know is I wouldn't take Elon's comments as accurate towards what Tesla is going to end up doing. Some of what he says is accurate, but especially when it comes to pricing, I remember watching the Tesla annual shareholder meeting last year, and he said that these price hikes were temporary, but long term they do want to make their vehicles more affordable. Here we are in May of 2022. The prices have never been higher, and now he's saying they might turn off the orders for them. So I just think from following Tesla and watching them be compromising on so many of their vehicles, best assumption you can make with Tesla is that it's the specs aren't going to be as good as we thought. The price isn't going to be as good as we thought. And if they end up beating expectations, then great, but don't put your expectations too high. Sandy said it cost only $30 million for a 50,000 a year line to make a Cybertruck. I believe him, but that has nothing to do with what Tesla charges for the Cybertruck. Tesla themselves, this is not speculative, this is not something Sandy said or some analyst said. Tesla themselves said that the refreshed Model S and X, with the yoke and the new display and everything that tilts, they said those vehicles cost less to build than the previous generation Model S and X Raven, with the old portrait mode display and the fold steering wheel and all that. They said on an earnings report, a public earnings report, that this updated version of the Model S and X cost less to build than the old version. Did that mean the price was lower? Heck no. It went way higher because the pricing isn't based on what it costs to build. It's based on demand and supply. And Cybertruck is higher in demand than any other vehicle we've ever seen before. So Tesla knows that. And Elon was in an interview recently, and he mentioned that they have far more orders than they could possibly build for like 3-4 years worth of production. So like they could probably go full volume, like just start building Cybertrucks at a huge run rate right now if they got all the equipment together and just went, all right, full speed, let's build as many Cybertrucks as we can. It would still take 3 or 4 years to catch up. So that's not a good place to be in, because that's when people just scalp and buy the truck as an investment, not actually to use it. And that's basically leaving money at the table that Tesla could use towards investing and building new factories and stuff. So that's why I'm predicting Tesla will intentionally spec out the Cybertruck to the point where people don't find it worth it. They're going to lose people, is what I'm saying. They'll come forward with the Cybertruck specs, and 80% of the reservations will be like, never mind, I don't want it anymore. They can afford to do that because that's how high the demand is. We definitely have to support the new EV brands, especially made in the USA ones. Tesla's good and others need our help. Yeah, I think that's great. If you like the product, I don't think you should buy it if you don't like it. But I'm very happy for the people that bought the Rivians. I'm on a Rivian binge. I watch basically every YouTube video with a Rivian in it. I'm in love with that vehicle, and I don't have the money to afford it, and it doesn't really, as cool as it is, it doesn't really have features that fit my lifestyle. Like, I don't need a bed, I don't need a gear tunnel, and I don't go off-roading or anything. But still, as far as trucks go, it's fantastic. 100%. People cannot wrap their mind around a supply constrained market. Cost does not set the price. Consumer demand does. Yes, that's my whole point. Is like I fully believe Sandy Monroe when he claims that it'll only cost $30 million for Tesla to do a 50 a year line, um, 50K a year line to make a Cybertruck. 50K a year is not much. That's not very good. Especially with demand as high as it is, 50,000 would be really, really tight. They would still be back ordered for years. That's why I'm predicting when Cybertruck production starts, it's going to be all in on production capacity. It's not going to be about making the best towing vehicle. It's not going to be about having the best range. It's probably not even going to be about being the most practical or customizable or anything. It's going to be a very simple design because that helps them ramp faster, and they're going to put in as few batteries as they can so that they can build as many as they can because they're battery constrained fundamentally. With the profit margin on the Cybertruck, price and demand are whatever he wants, whatever Elon wants. But I don't think it's because Tesla's greedy and they just want a bunch of money. I just think that it's honestly just not a good place to be in to have like a 3 or 4 year back order. That's just not a good place. Um, you want to price the vehicle according to what you can build and versus what the market is willing to pay for. So finding that balance is the key, and I think that balance is going to equal out with like $100,000 truck with a 300-mile range, because the Hummer I think is has far less demand than the Cybertruck. Right? I think most people can agree with that. Even if the prices were the same, there would be way more people buying the Cybertruck than the Hummer because it's a Tesla and because of the software and because of the performance aspect and the design being iconic and so much more durable and the bed being larger and the supercharging network. There's all these advantages the Cybertruck has over the Hummer, and the Hummer got over 65,000 reservations. So I could see with a high price Cybertruck them easily still selling several 100,000 a year. Um, and that they're not going to be able to build several 100,000 a year at first. It's going to be a very slow, gradual ramp up because they need big battery packs. I think the Cybertruck will probably go further with a smaller battery. Like I found out today that the F-150 Lightning long range, I think, is like 135 kilowatt hours. So it's very close to the Rivian, which makes sense. Both pickup trucks have close to the same efficiency and close to the same EPA range. So F-150 Lightning long range battery is like 135 kilowatt hours. Rivian large pack is like 130 kilowatt hours. I think the Cybertruck will probably have like a 300-mile range with a 120 kilowatt hour battery pack because it's going to have a more efficient powertrain and it won't weigh as much because of the structural pack and the exoskeleton. Maybe less, maybe 115 kilowatt hour battery pack or something. But still, a much larger battery pack, close to twice the number of 4680s that they put in the Model Y. So for every Cybertruck you build, you could have built two Model Ys for $120,000 of revenue. Now you're gonna put that into a Cybertruck for $100,000 of revenue. Yeah, that's why I'm not convinced the Cybertruck's coming soon. I think it could easily get pushed to 2024, possibly. Why isn't Tesla then building any new factories in North America? They need it. Can't just do Cybertruck out of one factory because it's not limited by square footage of factory space. It's limited by supply chains. You're not. There's more to a factory than just four walls and a ceiling and a concrete slab. Right now, they're limited by suppliers of how much nickel they can source and how much cobalt they can mine. Or they're using less cobalt, thank God. But how much nickel and lithium and raw materials they have available. That they haven't maxed out Giga Texas yet. So it's not like we could build more EVs if we had more square footage to a factory. It's like, well, you start with the factory and then you max it out with the raw materials and the suppliers and what they can provide. That's what comes next. What do you think about the Cyberlander? I don't think it's going to be as spacious as they make it out to be. And I think it's dangerous to put down reservations on a company that wants to eventually build something for a vehicle that doesn't even exist yet. It's an interesting concept, but I definitely would not put money towards it at this point. And trying to live or make an office space in a bathroom and a kitchen out of like a 6.5 foot bed. People have tried to do that with regular pickup trucks. It's not that great. I think you'd be better off just towing a trailer. Then they are admitting those supply chains won't exist for the long term. Well, I think they know that they're going to exist. That's why Tesla says their goal is to build 20 million a year. But the point is they're not ready now. Like, yeah, you could start building another factory right now. They could buy up a bunch of land and start building another facility, but the suppliers won't be there for it. So the factory would basically just sit empty for several years until you had the supply chains for it. The Cybertruck is years off. I think 2025 at the earliest. I hope you're wrong, Joey, but you could be right. Knowing how much Tesla has delayed things, just think about just that battery math I just did in my head is starting to stress me out, because think about it. The standard range Model Y, with the efficiency we know about, has somewhere around a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack with the all-wheel drive. This is what Giga Texas is building with the 4680 batteries, 60 kilowatt hours in that car. For the Cybertruck to go 300 miles, a little over 300 miles, and let's say it's a bit more efficient than the Rivian and the F-150 Lightning because it's more aerodynamic and the exoskeleton is saving on weight and the structural battery pack. Okay, it uses 120 kilowatt hours to go 300 miles. If you sell that Cybertruck for $100,000, you're using batteries that could go in a Model Y, 2 Model Ys. Enough cells for 2 standard range Model Ys together that would sell for $120,000. So I'm not under the belief that the Cybertruck is cheaper to build than a Model Y, considering quad motor. They haven't figured out how to mass produce an exoskeleton yet. That's all new stuff. Elon himself has admitted that. He's like, this is going to be like unlike any other vehicle we've seen. The air suspension is much more expensive. The air compressor, the vault, the machinery that goes into it, the armored glass. It's a 6-seater, larger display, newer hardware with the full self-driving computer, different cameras. The tow hitch is now standard. The ramp and the tailgate. Like, this is why they're not building the Cybertruck right now, is that revenue-wise, it makes far more sense to just build more Model Ys than it does to build Cybertrucks. But they keep saying, next year Cybertruck, next year Cybertruck. So I hope they finally get around to prioritizing it. But after comparing those batteries, there's definitely no way they're doing a 500-mile range Cybertruck. I'm sorry. Or if they do, it would be absurdly expensive. 500-mile range Cybertruck is going to cost like $150,000 or something crazy like that. How long did it take for the Model X to start shipping from announcement? I think it was 2 or 3 years or so. I plan to wrap my Model 3? Do you think it affects resale value? Is a good investment? I think a few paint chips doesn't affect resale to offset the cost, but can't find good data. Your thoughts? No, I watched some videos talking about like the maintenance and the things you have to do to your car to preserve the wrap and to take care of the wrap. So I'm not interested in wrapping. I don't really care too much about the look or the I'll get rock chips. I don't know. Maybe it'll all change when I get the car and it'll be so perfect. I'll be like, oh my God, I need to protect it. But right now, I don't really care about the exterior of my current car. Granted, it was a lot cheaper, but still, like, I don't stare at the outside of my car that much. I care more about the inside. So, yeah, I don't think most people would need 600-mile range for the Roadster. He doesn't care about how the Cybertruck does because all he cares about is having one. That's why they built it in the first place. And he has his, so he doesn't care what we get. Well, he doesn't get to drive it around everywhere, unfortunately. But isn't Tesla currently not battery constrained? He said probably in 2024 they might be lithium constrained. Yeah, right now chips are the bigger problem. But yeah, batteries is not. Right this second, they're not battery constrained. Why no one has built a convincingly looking Cybertruck? Maybe the Indonesian guys that build Ferraris and Bugattis will build one. I've seen some knockoff Cybertrucks that look pretty accurate. But anyway, it's been fun. I've enjoyed going over the Rivian stuff with you guys, but I got to get going. I appreciate you all for watching. But I actually have a video for you now, so the stream is ending. But it's fun to talk about pickup trucks, especially electric trucks. So I'm dropping the video now, and I'll paste it in the chat so you guys can go ahead and watch it. Hope you enjoy, and I'll chat again with you. Oh, before I forget, Just want to thank our executive and enhanced members of the Patreon, Joshua Vinnick, Dennis P., Dr. Mark Choi, who's a dentist in the Woodland area, Bennett Williams, Joshua Levitsky, and Robert Brindle. Thank you guys so much for supporting the Tesla Fund, helping out the channel, making these videos possible. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye. Enjoy the video.